Everyone, you probably noticed we have some great desserts over there, so continue eating as we go through the luncheon here. I don't want to interrupt your wonderful lunch. For those of you who don't know me, some of you have just arrived, or some of you were not here earlier. My name is Gail Weidman, and I'm the president of the Arizona Industry Liaison Group. My day job, I work for Medtronic and support several affirmative action programs all across the U.S. I would also like to thank the John A. Garza Award Selection Committee. They did an outstanding job, as they always do, with looking at the criteria, and I'll tell you, tough choice to select the recipient of the John A. Garza Award. So let me tell you a little bit about this award. So the John A. Garza Lifetime Achievement Award, and here's our honor here, Mr. Garza.
It was informed yesterday that I hadn't introduced myself. That's because I've been with the organization for 75 years.
You know, it's interesting, and I'm going to stray away from my notes here, but it's interesting because I do remember the day that I approached John about this award, and he said to me, "I'm not dead." And I said, "No, you're not dead." I said, "But you know, to me, I always think that, you know, you have a Lifetime Achievement Award in your honor and in your name, and you don't have an opportunity, they don't have an opportunity to see the recipients of that award. So, no, you're not dead, John. You're very much alive. And we're going to continue to honor a lot of great people that do all the wonderful things that you do." So let's talk a little bit about this award. So the John A. Garza Lifetime Achievement Award was sponsored by the Arizona Industry Liaison Group, and it acknowledges significant past equal employment opportunity, affirmative action, diversity accomplishments, and continuing contributions by an exceptional HR practitioner in the field of equal employment opportunity, affirmative action, and diversity. This award was established in 2013 in honor of Mr. John A. Garza, who is the president of the JAG Specialties Company. Mr. Garza, dedicated to the principles of equal employment opportunity, affirmative action, and diversity, span over a period of 38 years. Gosh, John might be what, 41, 42? I don't know. You're 21? Oh, 21. Okay, he's 21 stopping, okay? John's been doing this work for a long time. He's also been a member of the Arizona Industry Liaison Group, formerly known as Arizona Affirmative Action Association, or some of you may know us as Quad A. As I mentioned earlier, Arizona ILG has been around, gosh, since the 70s, 1975, John? Quite a long time. And throughout that time, John is actually one of the founders of this organization. So he has been dedicated and quite involved for many, many years. He's served in many roles on the board of directors. He's served as the recording secretary, treasurer, vice president, past president, and president of this association since 1999. Quite a while, John. I'm right behind him, though, because I think I'm on 20 plus years, so I'm right behind you there. Okay, so this year, the level of all nominees for the JAG Award, the JAG Lifetime Achievement Award, were among the elite. These individuals made significant contributions and commitment to equal employment opportunity, affirmative action, and diversity field. It truly was a difficult decision to select the 2017 final recipient. But before we announce the final recipient of the JAG Award, I want to thank our sponsor, our platinum sponsor, Direct Employers Association. Let's get a round of applause. Now what I'd like to do is invite Tom Eckert. He's the Vice President of the Membership Development of Direct Employers, to just come up to the podium to express his appreciation and sponsorship support for the John A. Garza Lifetime Achievement Award. Tom?
Good afternoon. I am Tom Eckhart, representing Direct Employers Association, along with Callie Gable, representing us. We're excited to be here. Thank you very much for inviting us. It's a great group. I didn't realize how interactive you were and how much information you have here. Dux is very proud to be the platinum sponsor and also to assist with the John A. Garza Lifetime Award to a very distinguished gentleman today. For those who don't know who Direct Declarers is, we are a nonprofit. We are member-owned with 900 plus member companies. We assist members with 503, VEVRA, and recruitment marketing. We are located out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and I see a lot of friendly faces out here, so some of you already are with Direct Declarers, and we appreciate your business. So have a good afternoon, and thank you very much for letting us be here. Thank you.
So now I'd like to ask John to step up to the podium and just announce our 2017 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient.
Again, we're all excited simply because it was a task, but on the other hand, I mean, how can you not recognize those that have been in the trenches? What, 35, 38 years? So I'm going to go ahead and announce and say to all of you that the award goes to Mr. Bob Enderle. He is the recipient of the 2017 John A. Garza Lifetime Achievement Award. So Bob, before you come up here, let me show a video that we've created for you.
Bob Enderle was Director, Diversity and Community Relations at the Medtronic Tempe campus. In addition, he serves as Organizational Development Strategist. He consults with both the local and global Medtronic business units on organization development, leadership development, coaching, talent management, and diversity and inclusion initiatives. He has been recognized for his efforts with numerous Medtronic awards, including the CEO Inclusion Award.
About our own Bob Enderle and the activities he's been involved in to not only support compliance in AAP, but to elevate all of those around him to a higher purpose. He's set the standard by doing not just what's required, but what's right to foster diversity and inclusion in the organizations he has worked with and in his community. As a father of 4 girls and a male in the HR profession, often surrounded by a female majority, Bob has been uniquely positioned to see and understand the impacts of driving inclusion and diversity, personally and professionally. He so regularly gives back to the communities he calls home. He's been active with the City of Tempe and has taken on leadership responsibility as a board member for the Diversity Leadership Alliance, Untapped Arizona, and the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, just to name those where he's currently supporting. Bob has been recognized in the past for his work with the DLA Leadership Achievement Award, the City of Phoenix Employer of the Year for promoting disabilities in the workplace, and the Medtronic CEO Inclusion Award. These are just a few of the honors Bob has received to recognize his boundless energy in support of diversity and inclusion. Many of you already know Bob. Where can you go within the Arizona HR community without having made a connection with him somewhere along the way? Within Medtronic, we feel the same way, and he's been a model for the type of leader we need and strive for across our organization. Bob was the force behind creating and deploying the Medtronic Global Inclusion, Diversity, and Engagement Program, and his infectious passion for providing an equal employment opportunity to all is second to none. I'm so privileged to be able to share a bit about Bob with all of you and want to congratulate him on the recognition you bestow upon him today with the John A. Garza Lifetime Achievement Award. We are all honored to know Bob and have had a chance to work with him and learn from him. I personally am so proud to call him a friend and a mentor and honor him with you today. Thank you.
Bob also facilitated graduate and undergraduate business courses at the University of Phoenix since 1991. He was the recipient of the John G. Sperling Distinguished Faculty Award, and in 2008, he was awarded the prestigious Diversity Alliance Award by then Governor Janet Napolitano for his leadership, commitment, and active participation in diversity education.
Bob Enderle, I think I got you. Congratulations on the John Garza Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, that must mean that you're older than me, because I haven't gotten a Lifetime Achievement Award in my lifetime yet. But I have one even better. I have your number 1 and 2 ladies in your life who are here with me. I think I fooled you on this one. Bob Enderle has set the path for anyone who wants to do diversity and inclusion work when it comes to affirmative action. Those are things that he's passionate about. And I know his passion, but I know that he's also the most compassionate individual that I've met. If you talk to Bob Enderle any longer than 5 or 6 minutes, you're going to learn just how deep those roots are that go for people who are on the fringes of life. And he helps to motivate them and build morale in them to do better, no matter what their set of circumstances were when they were born. I am so proud to be a part of Bob Enderle's friendship and his long line of friends, and now even with my sister and my, I don't know what I'll call you, Barb, my sister here and my daughter here, I guess it would be? Okay, so there you have it. Bob, we love you, we're proud of you. Thank you for all you've done for this community.
Bob was involved in the community, where his activities included serving on the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, the Executive Committee, and the Board of Directors for the Diversity Leadership Alliance. His previous work included chair member for the Tempe Chamber of Commerce and the Board of Directors for the Arizona Business and Education Committee.
And now I would like to invite Bob to join me on stage and accept the award. And also, if you would be willing to share some thoughts also about the award.
It's very heavy, Bob. I'm gonna have your son hold this baby. There you go. It's full. It's solid glass. So.
I gotta find a place to put this.
Uh-oh, he's gonna make room, Barb.
So, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very surprised. I don't know how those videos were created, but Marion, you totally got me this time. You all probably have quickly surmised that Marion is a very close friend of mine. We've been partners with DLA from the very beginning. We lost one of the triplets when Christine decided to retire. But we both remain very active, so I very much appreciate that. You probably noticed that as we went through all those pictures that the look has changed and I look a little bit different today than I did then. And the reason, and I'm also wearing this hat for a reason. Beyond the fact that I am a strong Bruce Arians fan and a Cardinal fan. And you know, when you buy one of these, part of this goes to his foundation for child advocacy. I know I've got just a few minutes, and my wife said, remember, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. But as Marion said, once I get talking, I become very passionate. So I'm going to try to keep it to 5 minutes, but there's a few key things I do want to share. But one of those, most importantly, is that the reason the look has changed is because on April 20th of this year, I was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer, a very aggressive small cell cancer that's very, very rare. So I spent a lot of time over the last 6 months, including 5 hospitalizations that have helped pay Marion's salary and other people there. But by the way, the hospitalizations, none of them have been related to my cancer treatment. I've just been one of those freaks of having different things like kidney failure, very severe vertigo, and most recently sepsis and E. coli that have kind of caused me to venture off in different ways. And the chemo did cause me to lose my hair, but in the process of this, I'm lucky to be here. You know, I really am thankful that God's plan was for me to be here today, because I had emergency neurosurgery that the doctor said that if I'd have gone another 24 hours, I'd have probably been in a coma and maybe dead. And then I learned that the E. coli that I had spread throughout my body, and that was also life-threatening. So I'm very thankful to be here today. I'm very thankful, most importantly, to have you here with me to share in this award, because, you know, I think these awards are not as a result of what I do, but rather of other people accepting some of the things that I say and preach and promote, etc. But by the way, the other thing is, you're wondering what this gentleman is standing for me by here. So I said I was not going to get up here with a walker, but I am still a little bit wobbly from having come out of the hospital, and I still have a little bit of vertigo. So he's been my bodyguard ever since the news release went out on me getting this. I've found that the paparazzi, it's hard to keep the paparazzi away, so I've had to employ Ty. But actually, Ty is my son, so, and he's here to help me if I wobble a little bit and go through this. But I'm going to try to make this brief. But there are a number of people that I do want to thank. First of all is John. You know, if John hadn't had a vision a number of years to go to form the Quad A, and I must admit I still often refer to it as Quad A rather than AZilg, to both people as well as when I look at things, we wouldn't have this award. But you know, John has spent many years, one, founding it, but then also building and sustaining it, and I think keeping the importance of affirmative action at the forefront of all of us. You know, over the years, John, I don't know if I go back further than you on audits or not, but I was thinking the other day, my first audit was 1973.
I remember that.
So, and at that point in time, we had a patchwork of organizations, not a single organization like the OSCCP to conduct the audits. And the one I remember most infamously was I changed employer. This is an interesting story. I changed employers. I left Bell Labs, which was my first audit, and we passed the audit with flying colors. And in the course of my interview with the company, I shared this. So the morning, my very first morning, I'm meeting with the VP of HR. He's got my appointment circular, said we're going to do this, and you're going to meet with, we've got this schedule for you over the next 2 days and meet with all these people. And by the way, one of the things that you will notice is that on the appointment circular, I've added, you're going to be the company EEO director. And he said, we all decided that you were better equipped than anybody else, and I think the real story was that nobody else wanted to do it. So that led to me, within 6 months, going through 7 audits, all across the United States. But the first one was we went to this manufacturing facility, so you would do the entrance or the welcome session, and the auditor says to the plant manager, you know, well, the plant manager said, I'm welcome to have you here, happy to get your feedback and everything. And the auditor says, yes, I'm very interested to understand why you have no women in your workforce, in the production workforce. And I go, oh crap, this is going to be fun. So that led to a consent decree. And I share this because the agency I remember was the Atomic Energy Commission, which was not an agency that you would typically think about, which ended up in a conciliation agreement. So anyway, that was the beginning of my career in this, and again, it's been, as I say, since 1973, been in this. So again, I want to thank John for that. Again, I want to thank the individual or individuals that nominated me for the award. I'm not sure why I was deserving of that, and I'm not sure why I deserve to get the award, because I think there are many of you out there that probably do more than I do in this area. Although I do take pride in what we've done at Medtronic, and also I think some of the influence we've had in the community in that respect. And then also want to thank the board of directors for accepting the nomination and then ultimately with the award today. But I'm going to surprise some of you probably with who else I'm going to thank. And unfortunately, Morgan's not here today. But I want to thank the OSCCP. Short story behind that. I joined Medtronic in May of 1994. In December, I got this letter from the OFCCP that many of you probably received that said, hey, we'd like to get to know a little bit more about your company. Not quite in those words, right? And so it was actually from an auditor who I think at that point in time was in Denver. And ultimately, the other thing was that again, there were a lot of things that I was trying to do with the company at that point in time to get things straight, and I'd been told that we were okay from an affirmative action plan standpoint, and I hadn't paid a lot of attention other than the quarterly reports, which, as you know, the quarterly reports and numbers can mask a lot of things. So the time to submit was right after Christmas, so the individual that was responsible agreed that he would put everything together over the Christmas holidays. Well, on New Year's Eve, I get a message that says, Bob, I've not been able to put the data together, I'm sick, and I'm going to take a leave of absence. So you can imagine what my reaction was. So in the meantime, there had been a change, and guess who I get? Dr. Jose. Dr. Jose Franco. As you probably know, there were a lot of changes going. Joe decided to move out of director role into some other things, and so I went through that. So I had the pleasure of having Joe on my campus for 4 years as a result of that audit, which ended up in a conciliation agreement. And I must say that the management was not happy, the management didn't want to accept it. But we went through a period of time in which I said, guys, we do have a lot of problems here. We have a choice. We can continue to fight this and drag this thing on, or we can accept it and move on. And fortunately, the decision was to move on with it. And so we settled a conciliation agreement, and that was where I then developed a partnership with Joe, not as in, this was prior to his consultant days, of working through this process. That then also led to the current day with Marvin and the work that Marvin has done. So that's why I really appreciate the OFCCP, and because it was that was kind of that crucible moment where we said we're going to, rather than fight this, we're going to accept what we've done, and we've got to do better. And then working with Joe, I tell you, is 4 years later we had another audit, and we passed it with no findings. Was actually recommended to submit for the Eagle Board, which, by the way, then changed management view, because management view then saw. Actually, I can tell you the audit lasted 2 days. And the worst thing in the audit was that most of you know, you go through the I-9s. The only I-9 I couldn't support was my intern in HR. So we have to have him sign a sheet, and Teresa was fine. Which, by the way, I give credit to Joe and to Marvin, but I also work with wonderful people like Teresa Lujan, David Smith, Mary Sneedhill. All of those would set the stage for the success that we had in the prior audit. And so out of that, what I would tell you is that, and Gail knows this from being with Medtronic now, that just a lesson to share with you, that use OFCCP as a partner. They're a great wealth of knowledge. Don't look at them as an adversary. I think many of you today still look at them as an adversary, and I will tell you is that when we moved to a kind of a centralized organization with OFCP, with audits at a Medtronic perspective, and they kept saying, what are you doing down there? Why is this thing working so well? Because every time we've set records in terms of closure. And I said, well, I'm talking with the OFCCP, and on the end of the line is this silence. What are you doing? Because fortunately, all the other things I have to give, by the way, is my management in Medtronic. You saw Joanne up there. Susie is here, Susie Petrilli. She was my last manager before I retired in May. There was another guy by the name of John Berry prior to Joanna. And they basically said to me, you know what you're doing, go do it, and just keep us out of trouble. So this is basically what I've done, right? Is that fair, Susie? You better say yes. But, I find it's easier to work with the OCCP than against it. And a great example was a couple of years ago, I think some of you are familiar with, I've been a leader in Project Search and getting Project Search established here in the Valley. And I asked Marvin, I said, Marvin, can I come in and just talk to you about Project Search and see what it might do, both from a Medtronic standpoint as well as making it available to other contractors? And so when I showed up at his office, it wasn't just Marvin, but it was his whole staff. And so we spent probably about an hour talking about Project Search, and at the end of it, he said, we need to make sure all our contractors know about this. And by the way, I think it is a sign of good faith effort. Well, so that's, again, one of those things, have we not engaged in the conversation? Have we not extended ourselves to do that? And those are the kind of things that ultimately, over a period of time, that I found that Medtronic has learned to accept and kind of, to some degree, endorse. I say to some degree, sometimes it's not. The other lesson that I would impart to you that I believe is absolutely essential. You know, if I go back to when John and I used to do spreadsheets and 8-factor analysis and all that stuff and try to guess at what percentage are we getting from here and there to where we are today, we still, as I think as a function, are wrapped up in numbers. We look at where we are in terms of percentages of representation, where are we at in terms of promotions, our training, and all that stuff. I'm going to say this rather bluntly. Don't focus on that. That's kind of the bullshit that you can use in any which way you want to prove what you're doing. The real thing is the focus on the business case. Why are we doing this? And get your managers to understand, your leaders who ultimately have the responsibility for that affirmative action plan, get them to understand what the business case is. Because unfortunately, most of my career has been with engineers. They're much more expertise at statistics and regression analysis and turning whatever numbers I present them, particularly if they're not looking favorable, into something that supports their case. But they can't argue against the business case that this is the right thing to do and to show them examples. And I'll just share one example with you. And I'm sorry, I'm going way over, but anyways. So, so on Project Search, I was asked to make a presentation on Project Search following another presentation from somebody that presented on Autism Speaks. And as usual, we never get the prime spots, do we? It's early in the morning or late in the afternoon. Well, this happened to be early in the morning. So the person got up and talked about Autism Speak, talked about its programs, and talked about all its features and everything. And it was kind of like, you know, one of these things. So I said, okay, I got to do something different. So when I got up, I said, look, how many of you would like to have an employee whose attendance is lower than the average? How many of you would like to have an employee whose productivity is higher than the average? How many of you would like to have an employee whose retention rate is higher than the average? Each time I had the question, yes. So I said, that's what I'm here to speak to you about this morning. I'm here to talk to you about Project Search and internships with interns with disabilities. You would not believe the discussion that generated and acceptance I got out of it. So think about that. Use business case rather than numbers. You know, the numbers are kind of like, all of us have tried to lose weight, right? But you don't lose weight by just stepping on the scale and looking at the numbers each day or each week. You've got to have a plan that says, I'm going to reduce my calories, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's much the same thing. What are the things that you're doing that lead up to the numbers? So with that, I'm going to very quickly end my remarks here. Let me make sure I covered everything. Oh, the last thing I want to do is I did retire from Medtronic on May 31st. By the way, I elected retirement in March. 30 days later, I find out I have this cancer. So I said that it's in God's plan that I had that because I've been able to focus with all these issues on my health and what I need to do. At some point in time, I'm hoping in the next month or two, I return to whatever my new normal is. But I can tell you, I am committed to whenever God says you can no longer do this, as remaining active. Because I may be the white guy, I may be the old white guy, but I am still committed to the principles of affirmative action, diversity, and inclusion. And I will continue to be involved. Mary knows I continue to remain on the board of DLA. By the way, DLA has its annual conference next Friday down to Sheridan, downtown. I would encourage you to go on. We have a great lineup of speakers there that I think would benefit from talking about. One of them is moving from incivility to having discourse within the workplace. As you know, we badly need that today. There's another one. Phoebe's in the back there. Phoebe's a co-presenter on emotional intelligence. So look at those and consider doing it. But I am going to remain very active with this organization as my time allows, and even though I'm no longer in a corporate setting to do that. And the last thing, and some of you may not be aware of this organization, I'm also on the board of directors of Untapped Arizona, which is an organization that's geared towards employers and helping them in terms of meeting their goals as it pertains to individuals with disabilities. So more to come on that. So with that, again, thank you for the award. Thank you. And again, I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you for sharing. And myself, and also thank you, most importantly, the last 38 years for making this easy open of that individual.
I believe we should roll into the next presentation. Willette, did you want to come up and introduce our next speakers? What I'd like to do also is ask that once we get the presentation started, that if I could have all the board directors and officers, as well as all the John A. Garza guests, please meet me outside. We'd like to take some pictures with the recipient of the award. So we will see in a minute. Once you're done introducing our speakers, if you'd step out, that would be great. Okay, great.
We're giving some handouts from our OSCP partners, and I've got my team helping me there with that. But we're going to have come up Greta and Cedric. We're going to get your presentation.
Okay, here we go.
And Carlo and Dieter are passing out the PowerPoints, but I wanted to give you